Have you ever been faced with what seems like an impossible decision? You weigh the different options back and forth for just days on end, just over and over, just playing it in your mind. You finally make your decision and instantly regret it. Now, this story is something like that. But however, the interesting thing about the story is not the impossible decision this person was faced with. It was how about this person resolved that horrible mistake, or attempted to resolve that horrible mistake, that makes this story super interesting. This is definitely one of those stories, if you've heard it, then you obviously know the outcome and you know the kind of the catch, the twist. But if you haven't heard this story, I can 100% guarantee you will not be able to guess what happens in this story. The twist is so crazy and it's so just far out there, you couldn't conceive it. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump in our story. Oh, but first, before we start the story here, if you guys like scary stories, you guys like true crime, horror stories, creepy stories, anything of that nature, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. Our main character in today's story is a guy by the name of William Hargrove, a man living in a small city in the state of Oregon. William has some super important choices to make in life. A choice that will set him on a course that'll change his life and the lives of his loved ones forever. In January of 2017, William Hargrove would ask his 26-year-old girlfriend, Anna Repkina, to marry him. Now, many lovely couples will make this choice to get married as a natural progression in their relationships, but not all relationships are built the same. Before we go any further, let's go back and take a look at Will's life a little bit. Now, Will's life was kind of your somewhat standard single guy life, maybe a little more miserable, if we're being honest. He worked as a mechanic, didn't make a ton of money, just a super lonely guy. And overall, he was just a loner, didn't seem to have many friends. His living situation was a little bit different, nothing too crazy, nothing super alarming, but it wasn't the best situation. He lived in a bedroom in a house that was occupied by a couple. The couple actually owned this house and lived in the house, but he was just renting a room out of that house. He really, really loved science fiction and fantasy, but don't we all, right? I mean, who doesn't love some Star Wars? He pretty much loved anything about outer space. That was his deal. Outer space, fantasy, aliens, superhero stuff. Like, he really, really loved it. That was his thing. That was his bag. But as much as he loved sci-fi and daydreaming about being a superhero and doing all these crazy heroic things, the thing he wanted the most out of life was to have a wife and some children. That was his goal. You're getting up there in age. You want to settle down and have some children of your own. And that was super appealing to him, and that's ultimately what he wanted. He joined an international dating website, and that's where he actually met and connected with Anna Repkina, his girlfriend. And Anna was super gorgeous, blonde, striking blue eyes, just a beautiful woman. And she was one of those romantic types, exactly what William was looking for. She really, really believed that every person out there had a soulmate. She was in failed relationship after failed relationship, but when Will reached out to her on this international dating website, she truly believed that it was fate that was bringing them together. Now, let's go back to Will's proposal. These details will be important later on. So back in January of 2017, Will is in his rented room that he has, his girlfriend Anna close by, just kind of hanging out. And Will, you can tell has something on his mind. Something's kind of gnawing at him. Ultimately, he's thinking about proposing to his new girlfriend Anna. So he has a little butterflies. He was a little nervous, but ultimately he gathers the courage up, gets the strength, and he does propose to Anna. He would reach into his pocket and pull out a tiny jewelry box. And inside of it was a beautiful emerald ring on a white gold band. It was just stunning. It was absolutely amazing. Will got down on bended knee and popped that question to Anna. Anna was a little confused. She was taken aback at first, but ultimately she was excited. Will proposed to her. This is what she wanted. This was the fate she was talking about. This was her soulmate. She really believed that Will reaching out to her on this website was fate, and this was her soulmate. She believed she found her one. And of course, Anna said yes. And later on that day, she flew back to Russia. So while Anna's in Russia, she's getting all her affairs in order. She's basically preparing to marry Will. So 2 months later, she flies back to Oregon to meet Will, to permanently live with Will, her soulmate. So when Anna lands in Oregon, she meets Will. They go directly from the airport to Will's home. And as they're bringing up the luggage, they're unpacking the luggage out of the car. They're walking into the home. They're walking up those steps. Will puts the key in the lock, unlocks the door. They walk through the front door, and there is a very intimidating woman just glaring at them. Just real spooky, kind of scary. Basically, the woman just glares at the both of them. She grabs Will by the arm. She drags him into the next room. You can hear them arguing, fighting. It's hard to make out what they're saying. Anna, she's a little confused, what the heck's going on here? So ultimately, she grabs her things. She heads to Will's room, and she's basically waiting for Will. The whole time she can hear them arguing about something. She can hear them talking. She's not sure what they're talking about, but it definitely sounds like something's going on. So eventually Will comes back into the room. He has this real sad, defeated look on his face, basically like a little boy that just got chastised for doing something bad. And Anna, of course, she asks him, hey, Will, what's going on? She's concerned, what's happening here? And Will basically tells her, hey, we're getting kicked out. We don't have a place to stay. And of course, Anna, at this point, she's upset. She just flew across the world to come to Oregon to meet her soulmate, and already something happened, a disaster happened. She's basically does not have a place to live, right? They're homeless basically at this point. The woman that was beating them that met them at the door, her name was Michelle Chavez, 35-year-old woman. This is actually the woman that Will was, well, not just the woman, this is the woman and her husband that Will was renting the room from. So basically when Will gave her the news, Anna asked again, what's going on here? Why is she kicking us out? Why did I fly across the world to be homeless? Tell me why, give me an explanation. Will basically told her that this woman, Michelle, kind of has a thing for him. She has a little bit of a little crush on him, and she's ultimately jealous, and she does not want another woman living in her house under the same roof as her. So she basically says, hey, you got to get out of here. And of course, Anna brought up the fact that this woman, Michelle, is married, right? So she explained that to Will. She expressed that concern to him, and Will just kind of brushed it off and just said, hey, she's just jealous. She just doesn't want another woman living here. Kind of just downplayed it and just said, hey, it's weird. We never done anything. She's kind of bizarre. I needed a place to stay, so I just pay rent and I live here. But nothing is actually between us. But Anna, being super optimistic, she thought maybe this is actually probably in the long run the best for us. We're going to be a married couple. We probably don't need to be living in a room. Let's go buy, let's get our own place. And that's actually what they did. They found a little house in a small town neighboring this city that they were currently in. And they got settled in, and they started preparing for the wedding, getting those plans together. And Anna's on top of the world. She's excited. She's in America. She has her brand new, not brand new house, but she has her own house. She's not sharing it with another couple, and she's planning her wedding with her soulmate. And while planning for their wedding, some bizarre things started happening. She started getting messages from Michelle harassing the couple, harassing her, basically saying, you better share Will with me or else, that type of stuff. Really, really spooky, scary type of things, when you're getting those types of messages. She brought this up to Will, and Will just kind of said, hey, just ignore her. She'll go away. She's just super jealous, but hey, I chose you. You're the one I want to be with, right? And so Anna said, okay, yeah, you're absolutely correct. We can't control her behavior, so we'll just keep pushing forward. We'll get married and we'll be good. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to the day of their actual wedding. So this is March 25th of 2017. The couple decided to go with a real simple outdoor wedding, nothing too fancy. Like I said, they didn't have a lot of money, so they just wanted to keep it real simple, but they wanted it nice looking, beautiful. So Anna wore kind of like a simple dress, but it was real beautiful on her. But it was, just real simple, no frills. And they did it at the beach. It was just super beautiful, just amazing looking. But it was real small, real intimate, just those two people. But there was just one problem. They could not locate the person that was doing their wedding. So while Anna moved forward to look at the beach and take in the view, the sounds, the smells of the ocean, Will kind of hung back and was on the phone trying to locate this person because they had a wedding that day. And it's like, where the heck are you? We have a wedding. So while Will was on the phone looking for that person to officiate their wedding, Anna was at the beach just enjoying the sun. She just was thinking everything's going so perfect, everything's so beautiful. Like I mentioned, this is fate. It's all coming together. A fairy tale, storybook, just a great love story, all coming together. The only thing she could think of was, with Michelle's threatening texts and her threatening messages, is like, I do not want her ruining this in some way. In the back of her mind, she just knew, Michelle's going to pop out somewhere and just ruin our wedding. And she's just going to ruin my day because she's just so jealous. So Anna looks up. She sees two people off in the distance kind of walking towards her. As they kind of get closer, they kind of come into focus, and it's her two friends. So the two friends that are there to be a part of the wedding and witness the wedding, they show up. So Anna goes to them and she greets them. She's hugging them, and it's her wedding day, so she's just super excited and just having a great time. Then she notices something out the corner of her eye, so she quickly turns and looks, and it's Will. He's still on the phone. She can see Will on the phone. He's walking towards her. He looks kind of angry. He's kind of, he's on the phone and he just has that look on his face like he's meaning his business. Something's not going right. So he's getting closer to them. He's still on the phone. He's angry. He finally hangs up. He gets all the way to them and he breaks the bad news to her. We cannot find this person. There's no wedding today. The wedding is called off. Of course, Anna's heartbroken, but being super optimistic, she's gonna roll with the punches. She's, what? We couldn't get married today. We'll figure it out and we'll just reschedule and get married for another day. So they walked back to the car and went home basically. So fast forward to a couple weeks later, Anna's still planning this wedding. She's getting a little frustrated with Will because he is just not helping with this wedding at all. Like he seems preoccupied with something's in his mind. He's just somewhere else. He is just not helping with his wedding. He's on the phone a lot. He's arguing with somebody a lot. Anna's a smart girl, so she's suspicious. She knows this probably has something to do with Michelle. Michelle is a freaking nut. She's putting two and two together, so she's kind of thinking like, what the heck's going on here? So of course, Anna, she brings this to Will's attention, like, what the heck's going on? Why you seem like you're preoccupied, your mind's somewhere else, you're not planning this wedding with me, like what's going on? Like, help me out here. And Will just kind of brushes it off and saying, it's nothing, don't worry about it. We'll get this wedding going. And so ultimately they plan the wedding, get the date set. So Anna's happy. She's like, okay, we're still moving on, just a little bump in the road, but we're getting to our destination. So finally on April 16th, Will would come to Anna and basically ask her, hey, I need to talk to you. Could you come with me for a walk in the woods? I got something I need to tell you. Anna knows that Will loves these walks in the woods. He usually likes to reflect and get his personal time. So she knew that if he's asking her, hey, let's take a walk outside in these woods, then it's probably going to be something pretty important. And she's trying to brace herself for possibly some bad news here. She knew that news was most likely to be about Michelle. So they both hop in Will's car and they make that trek over to the woods, and they park in the parking lot that Will normally parks at in the woods, real close to the trails that he likes to walk. So they get out of the car, they go down the trail, Will's trail. Everyone knows this trail. This is his spot. This is where he goes when he has his long reflective walks. So they're in this trail. They're basically walking. They're getting, behind the trees and whatnot. It's just kind of real quiet. It's uneasy. Those types of conversations where you're going to have some type of bad news. You're going to hear something bad. So it's just kind of quiet, uneasy. You don't really want to be the one to talk first. You're trying to mentally kind of prepare yourself for just some horrible news. It's just kind of a weird feeling, weird vibe. So they're just walking down this trail. Will kind of finally starts slowing down his pace. So they finally come to a stop. They both face each other and it's just still like a awkward silence. Will basically looks at Anna and says, you know what? I think we've kind of rushed into this decision. I don't think we should get married. And I just want to call the whole thing off. And of course, Anna was completely shocked by this. She basically flew across the world to Oregon to marry this man. And he's basically saying that he rushed into it. They thought they were going to share everything, have children, the whole family thing. They both wanted this. They're both on the same page. And out of nowhere, he kind of blindsides her with this. And he's kind of getting second thoughts, cold feet here. So of course, Anna's upset. She doesn't say anything to Will. She just basically turns around and heads into the woods and keeps walking and just kind of disappears over the horizon there. So the next morning, Will wakes up and the first thing he does is text Anna. He's feeling some major regret here. He made a mistake. He's texting Anna, he's calling her, but it's just going to the voicemail. The text messages he's sending her are not being answered. He's freaking out. He's just like, what the hell did I do? I made a mistake here. How do I reverse this mistake? And over the course of the next several hours, he just kept texting her, just super desperate, trying to just get her back, please, please, please. And she just would not respond to his text messages. He knew in his mind, in order to get her back, he would have to do something grandiose and just something big and something wild and crazy to be able to get her back. So he jumped out of bed and he just kind of began racking his brain, like thinking, like brainstorming, what can I do? So he kind of started looking towards his, all his fantasy movies and hero movies and, Avengers and whatnot and all these different movies. And he says, you know what? I got an idea. I'm going to go back in time before this event, like it never even happened. He ran to his computer and for the next 24 to 48 hours, he actually researched how to build a time machine. He was hell-bent on building a time machine to go back before the walk in the woods so he wouldn't lose Anna. So again, he's on the computer here. He's drawing all these sketches. He's trying to figure this out. How do I build this time machine? Okay. He has them all kind of drawn out there, but he kind of realized, I don't have the skills or the supplies to actually build this time machine. Like, what the hell else can I do? So he kind of just thinks and he's like, you know what? This is not going to work. I need something else. What do I do? So he kind of laid back in bed and he's just thinking and he's like, you know what? He's going through all his favorite movies and he's like, well, how do these guys go back in time? And he starts thinking, you know what? They didn't even use time machines. They use spells. So if I can just find the magic spell to use, then I can go back in time and go back before the event in the woods, right? So he hops on the computer again and he's researching magic spells to go back in time. So he would reach out to strangers on the internet that he thought were experts in time travel. And he'd say, you know what? I'll sell you my soul. All you have to do is give me one of these magic spells and I'll, you can have my soul. I'll travel back in time and I'll be with Anna again and we'll be happy. And it will be like I didn't say those words to her. It'll be like nothing ever happened. So of course he gets these spells and he's chanting them. He's trying them over and over. He closes his eyes. He wakes up and it's still the same time. He is not traveling back in time. So he's getting frustrated and, he's back on the web. He's scouring and it's not working. So he finally gives up. This is after 72 hours of being up and just searching on the internet, looking for spells and time machines, and it's just not working. He finally gets frustrated, throws his hands up, and he quits. So this is about 3 days since he had that talk with Anna in the woods. I believe this is the morning on April 15th of 2017. He hears a knock at his door. So when he opens his door, there's actually 2 police officers standing there, and he's confused, like, what the heck, what's going on? And they basically tell him, we need your help. Can you come down to the station? We just need to talk to you real quick and get some quick information. And Will agrees. He's confused. He's like, what the heck's going on? But he agrees and he comes down to the station with them. So he gets down to the station with the officers. They lead him into a small interrogation room and they basically sit him down, and Will's still confused, like, what can I do for you? What's going on here? And basically one of the officers looks at him and says, hey, Will, were you eating Kentucky Fried Chicken about 3 days ago? And Will basically says, yeah, like what? Why would you be asking me what I ate for dinner 3 days ago? That's weird. The officers, they didn't think that was funny. They were not laughing at this point. Will kind of saw how serious they were, and he's like, okay, well, what's going on here, guys? So let's cut there and let's go back a little bit. So to understand why they're asking about the KFC, let's see if we can understand Will and Michelle's relationship a little bit better. That might give us a little more context to what's going on here. So Michelle and Will, their relationship was a little bit more than what he was telling Anna. Michelle did not just have a crush on Will. They were having a full-blown affair since 2015. So a full year before Will met Anna. Basically, Will wanted Michelle to leave her current husband. Michelle said she would leave her husband, but she never really did. So what she did was she gave Will her wedding ring. It was a emerald ring with a white gold band. And now you might remember that earlier in the story, that's the same wedding band that Will gave to Anna. But Michelle gave Will that wedding ring as kind of like a promise ring, basically saying, we love each other, we're together, I will eventually leave my husband. But as time went on, Michelle didn't seem like she was actually going to leave her husband. And Will started to kind of have thoughts, like, is she actually going to leave her husband? Am I letting my life kind of just fly by me? Am I wasting my life with this woman? I want a wife. I want the kids. I want to have all that. I want a family. So that's when Will began joining the international dating sites. And that's when he reached out to Anna, somebody that matched the same interests as him. So one day, Michelle is on Facebook and she sees a post by Anna. And she shows her hand and she's wearing Michelle's wedding ring. Of course, Michelle sees this and she grows enraged. She learned about Will's proposal to Anna through Facebook, and he proposed with her wedding ring. So of course she was upset. Of course, right? So just a few weeks later, Anna shows up to Will/Michelle and her husband's house, ready to move in with Will. That's when Michelle intercepted them at the door and drug Will into the back room and began chastising him and kind of arguing with him. And during the course of that conversation, she was basically telling Will, you need to make a decision. It's either her or me. And that's when Michelle kicked both of them out. And despite having kicked them out, Michelle was still just angry and just filled with jealousy and rage. And that's when she was texting and sending all the angry messages. So when Anna saw Will outside talking on the phone and he was just super distracted, and she confronted him, and she just had an inkling that, it was Michelle. She was 100% correct. It was Michelle. Will was just still battling with himself on who he loved more and who he should be with. And he was just really pressed, and he could not make that decision. He just kept going over it in his mind over and over. So ultimately what he decided to do was try to buy himself some time. So he kind of put on this ruse. You know what? We're going to have this wedding at the beach. We'll hire someone to officiate the wedding. But there never was anyone. The wedding, it was all fake. He had his friends come out, but he knew this person would never show up. And he would lie and say it was canceled. And basically just to kind of buy himself some time to figure out what he wanted to do. And on April 16th, for whatever reason, he decided which woman he wanted to be with, and that woman was Michelle. So he invited Anna out to the woods. He basically broke up with her. Anna got upset. She turned away from Will and began walking through the woods. And so Will turned around. He followed the path where they came in at, went back to his car, popped the trunk, got something out of the trunk for Anna. He turned around and kind of backtracked to where he last seen Anna, and kind of walked down that same path. He got there, he saw Anna kind of just, in that path. She wasn't paying attention. Her mind was somewhere else. Her mind was spinning. She's probably thinking of the horrible news that Will just gave her. And at that point, Will just kind of creeped up behind her very slowly, very quietly, and pulled out a shotgun and popped right in the head, and he pretty much ended Anna's life on the spot there. And at that point, Will turns around and runs back to his car. He's looking in his car. He's gathering all of Anna's things. He's just scooping stuff up kind of sloppily, and runs back and throws her things and probably a bunch of junk and trash on Anna's body and around Anna's body, and basically hightails it back out of there, jumps in his car, and bolts the hell out of there. And the next morning, someone was out walking their dog, and they happened to come across Anna's body. Of course, that person alerted the police. The police came out. They began obviously doing their investigation, searching the body, searching for, the trash around her, the items around her. And they happened to come across a bag of KFC with a receipt that was purchased on the same date that they found Anna's body. And they found that receipt belonged to Will. And that next morning, Will did send those text messages and those calls to Anna's phone. But that was mainly just to kind of cover his tracks. So it's the oldest trick in the book, right? You off someone and then you send them a text message and you call, "Where are you?" and act like you had nothing to do with it. And that's pretty much what Will did. But ultimately, he did regret his decision. He finally decided, after making this very, very permanent decision, he didn't want Michelle, and he actually wanted Anna. And that's when he proceeded to lose his mind, and he said, what do the heroes do? All these movies I watch, how do they resolve this? And basically, they typically find some way to go back in time, and he figured he can figure out how to go back in time to before this incident happened and redo the horrible, horrible mistake he just done. And of course, he failed miserably because that doesn't work. It's just movies. But in January 2020, about 3 years after he murdered Anna, he was sentenced to life in jail. And Michelle had no charges against her in this whole matter.